All right, today we're going to dive into a legal concept that, honestly, totally flips the script on how we think about road safety. It's called the chain of responsibility. And the big idea here is that when it comes to heavy vehicles, the story is, well, it's always way bigger than just one person behind the wheel. I mean, think about it. You see a headline, truck crashes. What's the first thing that pops into your head? It's the driver, right? But is it really that simple? Is that the whole picture? Well, here in Australia, the law gives a very different answer. It says, hang on a second. The real root of the problem, it often starts miles and miles away, maybe in an office or a warehouse, long before the driver even puts the key in the ignition.
Okay, so let's get into this. This is where we see a huge shift in thinking. The law basically stops looking for one single person to blame and starts looking at a whole system of accountability.
And the core idea is actually pretty simple. It's that safety, it isn't just one person's job. It is a shared responsibility. The law gets it. It understands that what a driver does is often just the final link in a really long chain of decisions and pressures coming from a lot of other people. And this whole shared responsibility thing, it's not just a nice idea or a friendly suggestion. Nope, it's a formal legal framework. So let's take a look at who exactly is in this chain. So this is how the law literally maps it all out. It points to specific roles, and each one is a link in the chain with real, actual influence. You've got the scheduler, right? If they set a crazy, impossible deadline, that directly leads to driver fatigue. You've got the loader. If they don't secure the cargo properly, that messes with the truck stability. And get this, even a company director, just by setting a budget, can be the reason a truck isn't maintained properly. Every single one of these links matters. Let's paint a picture here. Imagine someone sitting in a comfy office chair, maybe hundreds of miles from the highway. They're mapping out a delivery schedule. And, they're trying to be super efficient, but they just don't factor in enough time for unexpected traffic. Or, and this is a big one, for the driver's mandatory rest breaks. And that single decision made at that desk creates this massive ripple effect. It puts all this pressure on the driver to either speed or, worse, skip a break they desperately need. And that is the absolute heart of this law. It draws a direct legal line from that decision made at a desk all the way to the safety of that truck out there on the road. This legal connection has a name. It's called the primary duty. And what that means is it's a proactive duty, and you can't transfer it. In simple terms, everyone in the chain has a personal responsibility to make sure things are safe. You just can't pass the buck to someone else.
Okay, so the big question is, how much do you actually have to do? The law isn't asking for perfect, absolute, 100% safety. That's impossible. Instead, it uses the standard called reasonably practicable. So let's break down what on earth that actually means. It's basically a structured way to think through any safety problem. You have to ask yourself these questions. First, what's the likelihood of something bad happening? Second, if it does happen, how severe would the harm be? Then, what do you know or what should you know about that risk and how to fix it? Are there solutions available? Are they suitable for your situation? And finally, you look at the cost. It's all about balancing the scales. But you'll see there's a very clear thumb on the scale in favor of safety. And this leads us to something called proportionality. And really, it's just common sense. If the risk is huge, it's very likely to happen, and the consequences could be catastrophic, then the law expects you to do a lot more to manage it. On the other hand, if it's a low risk, your measures can be proportionate. You can't just slap a Band-Aid on a life-threatening problem and call it a day. Now let's talk about cost, because this is so important. A company can't just throw up its hands and say, sorry, that safety measure is just too expensive. The law sets an incredibly high bar. For cost to be a valid reason for not doing something, it has to be grossly disproportionate to the risk. What does that mean? It means safety wins the argument pretty much every single time. All right, so let's say you've done all that. You've identified the risks, you've put in controls, great. But in this system, that's only half the battle. Now comes the hard part. You have to prove it. Yeah, here is the golden rule you absolutely have to remember in the world of chain of responsibility. If it isn't written down, it didn't happen. It's that simple. All your paperwork, all your documents, that is the evidence that proves you've actually done your bit and met your legal duty.
And this evidence file is what a real systematic approach to safety looks like in practice. We're talking about the paper trail. It's your risk assessments, your safe work procedures, the training records for your team, vehicle maintenance logs, even the minutes from safety meetings and the clauses you put in your contracts. All of this stuff demonstrates that you're being proactive, not just waiting for something to go wrong. So let's zoom out a little from all the legal stuff. Why does a law that seems to be all about trucking matter to every single one of us on the road?
Because it forces a whole industry to completely change how it thinks about safety. We move away from just reacting to crashes and pointing fingers after the fact. Instead, it pushes every single person who has any influence, from the boardroom to the loading dock, to proactively look for and manage risks before anything bad can happen. It's all about prevention, not just punishment.
And that is the real powerful impact here. The chain of responsibility changes the fundamental question from whose fault is it to how can every one of us work together to make this journey safe? It creates one single shared goal, and that goal benefits literally every person who uses the road.
And that really brings us to a final thought for you to take away. This idea of a safety chain, it goes way beyond just trucking, doesn't it? Think about your own job, or maybe a team project you're on. What's one safety chain that you are a part of, where the decisions and actions of many different people all contribute to a safe outcome? It's a pretty powerful idea to chew on.